Welcome to our 8th lesson in the membership class of the Bible Presbyterian Church of Olympia. The end is near. We're getting close to our 12 sessions for this membership class. On this 8th class, I want to talk about church government. It is from this doctrine that we get our name as Presbyterians, from the way that we govern ourselves as a church. And there are several principles that I want to make clear to you as you consider joining this church. The first one is that the Bible clearly teaches that Christ is the head of the church. You can go to Colossians 1, verses 15 through 18. You can go to Colossians 2, verses 18 through 20. You can go to Ephesians 1, verses 15 through 23, Ephesians 4, 11 through 16, Ephesians 5, 23. That Christ is the head of the church, not a man, not a council, not a group of people, but Christ is the head of the church. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to him to be the head of the church. And as Ephesians 1 says, that God the Father has put all things under his feet and given him to be head over the church. And as the head of the church, Christ has appointed a government for his church. He just told us how he wants his church to be governed on earth. And he has authority to do that. If you remember the famous Isaiah passage that we recite at Christmas, Isaiah 9, 6 to 7, it tells us the government of the church is upon his shoulders. That is his. He has the power, the authority to determine what the government should be. And he can appoint those who will rule under him. There's the authority to appoint those that are going to rule over him. As a matter of fact, in Ephesians 4, verses 11 and 12, Paul tells us that he gave those who rule over the church as gifts, gracious gifts to the church. And what we see in the Bible is that the government of the church is distinct from the civil government. There are things that the civil government is to rule over, and there are things that the ecclesiastical, the church government, is to rule over, and there are two different spheres of authority. And as we study the Bible, we see that Christ established a Presbyterian form of government for his church. What does that mean? What does a Presbyterian form of government look like? Well, one is that the office bearers in the church are elected by the people. See that in Acts chapter 1, 23 to 26, when they're choosing a new disciple, a new apostle. And they do that by the choosing of the people. In Acts chapter 6, the apostles tell the people, find 7 men that can serve as deacons, and we're going to confirm them. When you elect them, you vote for them, we'll confirm them. And a very important passage is Acts 14:23, where it says, so when they had appointed elders in every church and prayed with fasting, they commended them to the Lord in whom they had believed. That word appointed is important because it means appointed by the showing of hands. It wasn't like Paul went to every church and said, you're going to be an elder, you're going to be an elder. The church chose who they were, and the apostles looked at the qualifications and confirmed the choice of the congregation. Another thing we see in the Bible is that the office of a bishop, the Bible is the word bishop, and the office of the elder are the same office. That the bishop is not one thing and the elder is something else. The two Greek terms are used in the same way. They're synonymous. You can put an equal sign between bishop and elder. Episkopos, which is a term often translated as bishop, where we get the word episcopalian from, which means overseer or bishop, and the word presbyteros, which means elder, that's where we get the word Presbyterian. These terms are used interchangeably in the New Testament several times. For example, in Acts 20, verses 17 and 18, it says this, from Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called for the elders of the church. So the elders of the church come and meet that. So the word elders is used there. And when they had come to him, he said to them, you know from the first day that I came to Asia, in what manner I was always lived among you. And then dropping down to verse 28, therefore, talking to the elders that came to see them, take heed to yourself and to all the flock among whom the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. That's the word for bishop. So the elders are overseers. And then he says to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his blood. And that's the word for pastor. So elders, bishops, pastors, these three words all are talking about the same office, just using different words to describe different functions of the same office. And it's important also to note that Christ appointed that there should be multiple elders in each church. It's not just one dictator elder, but multiple, a plurality of elders. We saw that in Acts 14:23, where it says that the disciples appointed elders, plural, in every church, singular. Philippians 1:1 tells us that too. Titus 1:5. So is the church, the local church, to be ruled by a plurality, a multiplicity of elders. In our church currently we have 4 lay elders and myself. The 5 of us form the session of the church, the leadership of the church. We also see that the Bible teaches that one elder should be ordained by multiple elders. Nobody just lays hands on their own heads, or one person decides. It's a plurality of elders that ordain elders, or we could say the presbytery ordain elders. You see that in Acts 13, verse 3. You see that in Paul's comments to Timothy as well. The assembled elders, we say in the Bible, from the various church exercise rights of government and receive appeal. So a lot of churches agree that the church, local church should be ruled by elders, and they have ruling elders that rule in the local church. But they don't see that each local church should not be independent from all the other churches. The Bible talks about elders from several churches getting together and ruling on matters that affect multiple churches. So that in Acts 15, the churches in Antioch got together and they couldn't figure out what to do. So the churches in Antioch, that's the Presbyterian Antioch, appealed to all churches and they met in Jerusalem and they made a ruling in Acts 15, and that ruling applied to all the churches. So there's this connection between churches. In our denomination, we call them presbyteries. And then a collection of all our presbyteries we call our General Synod. And it's important also to notice that all these officers in the Bible, all these leaders in the Bible, recognized that Christ is the only head of the church. They never tried to take upon themselves the head to be the head of the church. So Paul appointed this. Paul taught it, but Christ appointed this form of government, ruled by elders, both at a local level, but also at the presbytery level and in the denominational level. So elders are a gift from Christ to the church, to rule the church in his place.